Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 33 of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. I think we finally have some things moving forward. I feel like for the last little while, we had a bunch of projects that were kind of just in limbo
Stale.
or kind of just stale.
Well, it wasn't that we were in limbo. It's just that we had so much coming in that we couldn't, the wheel wasn't spinning fast enough.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the problem too, with just like the labor issue everywhere is we end up closing on all these places because it makes more sense than wholesaling them, or they're kind of like unique properties and it's difficult to wholesale them. And by unique, I mean, they have tenants. And here's one thing: if you're going to buy a property, like you want to invest in real estate during a housing shortage, you have to learn to buy with tenants.
Yeah.
Honestly, the biggest issue that we deal with all the time is people not having somewhere to go, whether that's a tenant or a homeowner. And if your contingency is that the property needs to be vacant, that's not going to happen just like lickety split anymore. There's going to be a process there. We're always willing to help out, but there's so many people that are like, well, there's going to be a tenant in there. I'm not going to handle it. And we literally just did a job where, no one would touch it because there was a tenant. We closed on it, went to the tenant, we're like, hey, I'll give you $1,500 to leave. And she was like, okay. And she left.
Bye-bye.
It was really easy.
Yeah, it was really easy. Yeah. I had a listing that reminds me recently this year where there's a tenant in place, signed around deal, got the contract signed, everything's moving forward. And then the agent starts getting like weird. And she's like, well, what about the tenants? Are you guys going to make them move out? I'm like, that's not in the contract. And then like just kept beating on. She's like, what's the property manager's number? We need to talk to the tenants, like all this sort of stuff while we were signing. It's like, and she was buying for an investor who was doing kind of a traditional MLS deal, 25% down type thing. And I was like, you should have asked those questions before you wrote the offer for your client. If they're not into dealing with tenants, you just got your client into a bad situation because yes, there are tenants and you knew that. Granted, I had issued the 90-day notices, intent to sell. So they, and I put that in the listing. And so it's like, yeah, people get so uneasy, but it's like, you're right. If you're in a housing shortage situation and you want to do deals, you're going to have to eventually deal with tenants. And sometimes those are the best deals.
I know. Yeah. It's just silly. And it seems to be such a reoccurring thing. And I understand, it can get messy. You have to evict somebody. That can get really expensive, get really complicated, all that sort of stuff. But from our experience coming up on, I think we're actually about to cross 100 deals. We have had issues with that a handful of times, maybe like 2 or 3. So that's what, 3%?
Yeah.
2%, and we've sold some with tenants last year to various people. We had one buyer that we sold a lot to who was more willing to buy with tenants before they kind of just slowed down their business a little bit. And they've had one major situation with tenants that got really out of hand, where like some crazy stuff happened. Like the tenants showed up at their office.
Yeah, that is a bad deal.
But that's an extreme situation. Yeah. That's not the norm. And like, I think that people are just afraid to be the bad guy.
Right.
And, but like, this is just classic. I don't know, just as a classic view among people right now is it's like, I recognize that this is a problem, but I'm not going to handle it. So I'm going to make someone else do my dirty work so that I can just benefit.
Right.
That's also why those people aren't getting that many opportunities.
Yep. Yeah. And we did the Cash for Keys episode, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And like, just look at the deal, look at the numbers, look at the carry costs you're going to have, and then balance that out with the Cash for Keys deal. And then look at your most extreme worst case. Maybe your most extreme worst case is you run them out 3 months and you spend another $3,500. Okay. Put that into your budget. That, look at it. Most times, like when we're sending deals out, we're going to factor that in with the tenant. We're going to understand that as a potential risk for our buyers and recognize that. We're not just going to try to throw you to the wolves with some crappy tenant situation, because we've dealt with them too. We understand the situations, and we generally do a pretty good job dealing with that before we send out a contract. And so, yeah, enough said.
Yeah. But, what you said before, something else that I've been thinking about a lot is with these realtors. So we have these lake cabins, these little ones that we bought a while back.
We did get a cash offer on one. I like that.
We did get a cash offer on one. Yeah. So, we one of them fully fixed up and listed, got a cash offer on it that we're going to accept. They had a couple contingencies that we're navigating, but overall, it looks like we're going to take it. But what is with these realtors recently? Because we also had them listed before as like fixer uppers, and we had several people that like made offers on them without making it clear what the buyer's goal was.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you wasting everyone's time by like trying to hide what you're trying to do? So basically what happened, these little tiny homes up on one of the lakes here, and we had several people that reach out that were basically wanting to do all these inspections and stuff that they wanted us to pay for so that they could figure out if they could knock down the cabin and build a larger house on there.
Right.
And you know what? If you just ask if that's possible, the answer is no, because the lot isn't big enough and the septic system isn't large enough to hold that.
Well, and it goes back there. We've had this happen to us a few times on listings, which this is just bad form of asking the owner to pay for an inspection. Like, sure, I'm going to call up my buddy and he's going to come and inspect it and it's going to cost me nothing. And he's going to say, it's really good to go. Like, that's like what could happen, right? You would never want to do that. If there's some contingencies in there, like, hey, if there's any repairs that need to be doing, right, that's normal, right? You're the buyer, pay for the inspections because I think the house is great. Inspection complete. I'm the seller. Yes. Why would I pay for your due diligence? Like, that's on you. And so you see that. And then also you see it a lot of times with some of these folks making offers. It's like they're so used to the frenzy, they got to get their offer in. And then all of a sudden, you're right. Then all these questions come out. It's like, why didn't you just call and ask beforehand? Like, that's communication in this game is how we play, because we're willing to work with you and figure things out with you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you're seeing that in the retail side. And I feel like that is the kind of thing that realtors sort of look down on wholesalers upon is they like, they will get contracts that they're not prepared to close on. It's like, you're doing the exact same thing where you're basically getting a contract at all costs and then trying to figure it out.
Right.
That's what like the worst wholesalers do.
Exactly.
Is they'll go and they'll lock up a property for way too high and try to like beat down after negotiations, after they're verifying all this, whatever. And it's like the realtors are not doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we're switching places.
Well, and in their defense, if you're just a retail realtor with a little bit of experience, like I also on listings, I'll get like when we're trying to, wholesale something or whatever, I'll get offers from people that are wholesalers in quotations. They're just, and you look at the offer and you're like, come on, dude, this is the most janky thing. I know exactly what you're trying to do here. Like they don't call you, they won't do anything. They'll just send you an offer and ask you to sign it. It's like, well, I guess that's a way to do it, but that's like the most awful way to do it. Like pick up the phone and call, talk to the person, say, here's what I want to do. You think your seller's open to it? Nah. Okay, cool. I'm good. Walk away.
Yeah. I mean, which is right there. You got to talk to people. That's how you get everything done in this business. It's all relationship business.
No, like I can't do that.
I mean, you have relationships, just like we said in the last episode, we talked about GoBundance a lot. Your network is your net worth, and that's locally, that's everything that you do.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, going back to how the conversation opened, I think we got a lot of things moving now. We were kind of sitting there because there's definitely like a shortage of contractors and labor. And for us personally, there wasn't necessarily a shortage of deals. I mean, how many do we have in escrow right now?
I lost track. I posted on my Instagram the other day that we had like 19. I think we're at like 23 or 24.
So, yeah, we got a ton of deal flow. And then for us, when we're taking these down, was kind of tough. We had the one with the tenant in it, the tenant owner that became a tenant in it that we finally cleared out. That one was awesome.
That was just as like the most classic situation. You guys go check out my my Instagram at Mike_invest. I did like a live video where we just go through and walk through it. And these people, I mean, they were just a headache, so they stopped paying us rent a couple months ago. I think they were kind of bitter about the fact that, we bought this house and I don't know. But they told us that the place was like cleaned out. Well, I guess first off, we uncovered that they had some sort of situation where the lady told us that like 20 something people had lived there over the last 10 years. So they were like trafficking people or something.
Something not legal. Let's just put it that way.
Something not legal for sure. Like definitely something super hairy. And then after they moved out, our guy, Judd, is over there, just kind of doing a walkthrough and sends us a photo of like ammunition and like these like gun parts and stuff that were like kind of stashed out in the shed.
Which was just so like, random with all the other random trash that was there.
Yeah, right. So we go over there. She tells me that the place is like all cleaned out, ready to go. We roll up at this house. From the outside it looks okay, but then we start going into it and just so much trash. Like it, as you put it, it almost seemed like they brought trash into the house before they moved out. And just like little things like, that I texted her afterwards and I was like, hey, did you really have to leave all of your meat in the freezer? Like you could have gone away. And she goes, oh, that freezer hasn't worked for months. I'm like, and you just left it there for months while you lived in the property?
Just disgusting people.
Like what is wrong? Because so I opened the freezer and it just stunk, and there's like all this meat juice oozing out, and then you found a jar of weed that they left there.
People always leave their weed, man, which surprises me. That's not the first house. Yeah, I remember 20th, we were there, found some weed and some weed candy, which is fine. I don't care, but like,
well, even then, those were like kind of like those were edibles that were sort of like stuffed up in a shelf. That's one thing. This was like an actual jar of Kush that they were obviously smoking.
Yeah, homegrown, probably
left behind. Yeah, right. Well, we know that they own like a weed farm up north somewhere. But like just such random stuff everywhere. And I'm just like, I don't understand how people like, and same thing. Just say like, hey, we're not gonna clean it out. That's fine. We'll get the junk people over there, but don't lie to me.
Well, this one was lying. She was lying the whole time. But either way, like, we finally got them out. That was a tenant issue. Like, we dealt with it, and we're still got margins on. We're still going to make money, so that's cool. Hopefully, get that thing sent out or listed or whatever we end up doing on that one. And we've got our 2-week flip. Hopefully, wrapping up tomorrow, which is cool.
Nice.
That'll get listed next week, and then onto our other little tiny cabin. We'll fix that one up, and then maybe, just maybe. We'll start working on our Airbnb with the oil leak that everybody that's a listener has heard about, which is still up in the air 5, almost 6 months later. Just really hate the insurance company and all the adjusters. We've had 3 adjusters because apparently we're hard to deal with, where it's a unique situation, whatever. So hopefully clearing all those off. I think that's kind of a goal of yours and mine is to kind of clear off our list of projects just as we go forward and reduce our exposure there.
Yeah, well, with that one, excuse me. With that one, even though it is sucking that sitting empty, at least we got out of that hard money before that whole thing went over. Right. And we were close on that. So I was looking at some emails recently. We refinanced that thing like 2 weeks before that whole situation happened.
Absolutely. We refinanced because we were on top of our shit. We were like finishing rehab. Let's get the refinance done. We got it put up on Airbnb, and then like within weeks, probably a month of it being ready to go.
It was like 13 days.
Yeah, that's funny.
It was 2 weeks. It was right afterwards. Yeah. So, at least we're paying it down on a 30-year note right now. It's cheaper than 9% hard money loan or whatever we have.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe we can get to that one. That'd be good. Start getting some cash flow there. And then our condo flip, the one that got blocked by the HOA insurance, we finally had a meeting with the lawyer. And ultimately what's going to have to happen is we're completely just dismantling the HOA over there.
Yep.
I mean, as much of a nightmare that situation is, the HOA and the manager of it has been awesome.
Yeah.
Like they're super, super nice, and they recognize that it's a terrible situation that, not only are we in, but also that everyone there is kind of like trapped with their houses. They're not going to be able to sell it or refinance or do anything until this is solved.
Yep.
So they're all highly motivated. And then we went to our little HOA meeting over there. Everyone was like, wait, so we don't have to pay these stupid HOA fees anymore? Like, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, let's junk this thing out. It's a weird story, which I guess I don't know how we would have known that going into it, but it's a learning opportunity as you're kind of learning to review some of these documents, because there is a history with the HOA of why it was set up the way it was. And now we know.
Well, the thing that sucks with it is, even if we had reviewed all this when we bought it, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Mm-mm.
So like the issue has occurred because of the rapid inflation in material costs in real estate, right? So that's the whole thing, is that the current insurance that they're able to get will not cover the value of the property, because the value of the property is so much higher than the replacement cost.
The replacement. Yep.
Yeah. So they had issues in the past where they had to make an insurance adjustment, and now they can only get insurance that'll cover the replacement cost, not the actual value of the real estate, which doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, it's I guess to restate that, it's a fixed cost. It doesn't cover the actual cost. It's a fixed cost, which likely would still be enough to rebuild it if it burnt down, but it's not enough to give a lender confidence that in case inflation goes up even higher, that those build costs wouldn't go exceed that.
Correct. Yeah. And because people are looking to buy it, it's traditional buyers. And so they have to be able, the lender has to be able to sell it to Fannie Mae, and Fannie Mae has all these guidelines, and it's just a whole freaking situation. Because that's why we were able to buy it and get insurance, is because we're with a hard money lender who holds it in house and doesn't have Fannie Mae restrictions. So the insurance company doesn't care. It's the lender. Right. So, but anyway, if real estate hadn't been growing so quickly, we wouldn't have had this problem. Because the value and the replacement cost wouldn't the value wouldn't have exceeded the replacement cost so drastically, which throws off what the insurance is willing to cover. So, but anyway, it's at least making progress. I should be hearing back actually in the next day or so what the timeline is hopefully going to look like for that. But I mean, we're going to find out here pretty quick if we're completely screwed or just mostly screwed.
Yeah. I mean, the worst case scenario on this. So for context too, the worst case scenario for us on this is we just rent it out. We'll hopefully through the year, we'll have to figure something out on that financing piece for us, because we do have a hard money loan that has a balloon at 12 months. But we could potentially rent it out, but then we can wait it out for a short period of time until the insurance on this can be changed. The insurance policy for the HOA can be changed.
Yeah. Well, I almost wonder as well, and now we can talk about this a little later, but I mean, if we did have to keep it, if it would make sense to refinance it with if it's going to be like a couple year process, or we're just going to be completely SOL. If we'd be able to refinance it with a long-term lender that doesn't sell to Fannie Mae, like a commercial lender or a private lender.
Yeah, I think that would probably be our solution. It'll cost money and fees and all that, but we have margin on this, which is, that's how we do our deals. We go in with margin in case something goes sideways. And we could do it. I mean,
we have fat margin. I mean, we had like an $85,000 profit on that thing, which is what really sucks. Honestly.
Yeah. Every month it dwindles down a little bit more. Which, you and I say this all the time. Don't count the chickens before the eggs have hatched, kind of thing. Don't count your money until it's in the bank account. Because if had we been relying on that money, which we kind of were, we're kind of hoping it would come back to redistribute it into other projects. But, we had to pull other levers.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Right. And that was literally as close as it could get. I mean, I think that thing fell out the day before it was supposed to close.
Yes, it did.
I had to cancel my Tesla pre-order.
Yeah, exactly. Darn. Darn. Yeah.
I wish someday I'll be comfortable enough to throw away money on frivolous things.
Well, speaking of which, I did do some research on buying like Lamborghinis. So there is actually a sweet spot if you want to buy a Lambo where they don't depreciate anymore, and it's like a certain year range. I want to say the early aughts. Right now and today, you can buy some models of Lamborghinis that cost you around 90 to 100, 115. You got to get a lower mileage, usually under 20,000 miles on it. Well taken care of, parked in a garage type situation. But then it won't depreciate below that dollar amount, hypothetically. And so really, to drive a Lamborghini, you're just paying yourself every month, because you can typically do 84-month financing on these things, which is around $1,500, close to a Tesla. And so then to drive a Lamborghini, you're basically paying yourself to own it, because then when you sell it, you're going to sell it for what you bought it for, because it is an appreciating asset at that point.
Well, yeah, you should talk to Ryan Dossi about that. I mean, his Ferrari, he bought it for I think it was like $230 or something. And now that same one, if you were to sell it, is worth like $260, $270.
There you go.
And it's going up in value because he bought that sweet spot property, that sweet spot price range and car, right? So, or like you said, the long-term financing, when we were in Miami, I was in Miami last, was it a couple weeks ago now? Me and Billy, our buddy Billy from one of our other groups, were out walking around, and there's a Ferrari dealership there. Right on the Ferraris, they have a sign that's like, it was like 144 month financing.
There you go.
And it was like your payment on this car will only be like $1,140. I was like, I mean,
it's not bad.
You do it that way, that makes it very affordable for people all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's not that bad. And you could have one rental property that cash flows that much.
Right? I mean, if you wanted that Ferrari for 12 years, I mean, you can do that. Like that payment. I mean, if you were to go and buy a Ford F-150 right now, your payment would be $900.
Yeah.
You might as well spend an extra $200 and get yourself a Lambo.
Get that Lambo, dude.
Hilarious. Anyway, so jumping into the educational portion this week, one of the things we want to talk about that has come up a lot in our group and other groups we're in, and also actually talking to one of my competitors, is cold calling for marketing, for finding properties. Is it still effective, and how exactly to go about it if you're going to do it? So anyway, after a little ad here on the Instant Investor Program, we'll talk about that. So cool. Be right back. The Instant Investor Program is our 12-week group coaching program, which includes a self-driven course and access to our private investor community. We will take you through the full process of how we find our leads, how we market, how we do our sales and follow-up, and how we determine the best strategy for every opportunity that comes our way. On top of that, you will also join a community of other like-minded investors nationwide that are all marching towards the same goals, and you will have direct access to Dan and myself so you can continue learning and growing with us as we continue to adapt and grow our business. So whether you're a new investor or already established, our systems can help take you to the next level. So if you think you might be a good fit, go to theinstantinvestorprogram.com and schedule a call, and we can have you talking to motivated leads in as little as 2 weeks. All right, cold calling. It is a common tactic right now for people to look for deals. There's a lot of questions about the legalities of it. TCPA has guidelines around, calling people on do not call lists. It is very popular with people because it seems like it's cheap because it's an upfront cost, but it is also something that is very heavy in labor. And one of the biggest challenges with it right now is that, with the legalities of it, there's been a huge number of people that have been added to the do not call list that you can't legally call now. And there's also been an incredible influx of companies who offer cold calling who frankly suck. Yes. And they market directly to people who don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're like, oh, that's $1,000 a month and you'll generate leads for me. Yeah. Even though those leads that come in are trash, and they're not motivated and they're not actually wanting to sell. And like the whole business model of these companies is like, well, you see leads coming in. So as far as you're concerned, being an ignorant new investor, it's effective.
Yeah. And I have a real issue with companies that sell leads in general, whether they're cold call leads, right, text leads, whatever they're saying, they're sending you. I have a real issue with that because you're right. The lead quality is generally really poor because they have no stake in the game once they give you the lead. Right. They have nothing.
Mm-hmm. They already have your money. Mm-hmm. They have, exactly, no stake for it to be a good lead. Like they have no upside at all. So all like their whole business, I would actually be interested to talk to somebody who runs some of these businesses, what their anticipated churn is. Because if they're sophisticated, they're going to know what the average lifetime of a client is. Right. And I bet you that there's a ton of them that they realistically only expect to have a client for 3 to 4 months before they leave because they know that their product sucks.
Yep. And they just have to build their business around a lifetime value of X dollars for 3 months and then know that they're going to churn. And as long as they can pile a good portion of their income into marketing, they'll always have a reoccurring client base. They can have capacity for 1,000 clients and they're always going to have 1,000 and they lose 300 every month, add 300 every month.
Yep, exactly. And, and they get inundated into some of these communities. And they go and they find like the one guy who's new, who's like, this is so awesome. I'm getting 15 leads a week. Like I'm not having to do anything. This is great. He doesn't know the leads suck yet. But he goes and he tells all of his friends in the community. They all go piling onto it. They all sign up. Then over the next 4 months, the whole community is like, wow, that group sucks. We didn't get anything from that, but it doesn't really matter because you already got their money.
Yeah. And what kind of exclusivity agreements do they even have? Like, hey, how many guys are buying the exact same leads in our home market from these companies, right? It's like, be careful there.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it gets shady too. Before I will bash on it a little bit more here, because obviously I'm not a huge fan, but I do think it does have value. Right. But that's where it does get shady. Is we worked with the company for a while. It's actually run by a buddy of ours whose name I'm not going to mention. If he listens to this, you can go ahead and shoot me a DM, and I'm about to blast your company. But basically what would happen is I would hit him up and I'd say, hey man, like we're not really getting a whole lot of leads. Like I think we want to, shift directions here. I don't want to keep using you. And he'll be like, oh, let me see what's going on. And then all of a sudden the next day we would get like 9 leads.
Right.
And I'm like, what the hell was happening for the previous several weeks that you can just turn it on like that? Like, are you withholding stuff? And you'll be like, oh, I just put on another caller. I'm like, well, why don't we always have that caller?
Yep, exactly.
Like it doesn't, it's not like it went from 1 to 3. It went from like 1 to 9.
Yeah.
And that happened over and over and over again.
And you don't have any view into their back end process to see that,
Correct.
to see they're just like, let me just dump them into your CRM or give you a form to have dump into your CRM. And so it's like, what's going on? How did I just get 9 more after I called you? Like, that's weird. Where did these leads even come from? Did you just pull them off the list and just tell me they're leads?
See, and that's the thing too, and that's where we get suspect. Is we've had this with other ones. Is well, you know, we still use a cold calling service for now. I should probably end it this next week, but they gave us 2 free weeks after I tried to cancel. So I was like, I
might as well get your free leads. You never know.
Yeah, but like, so what happens all the time, and our sales guy reports this is like, yeah, so I called that number back. That is not the people who own the property, and it's not associated with the property at all. Nice. So I'm like, so are they literally just like submitting things that are crap? But the point being, I think the bigger picture with that is to be extremely skeptical of anyone that's providing you leads that you don't have a deep knowledge at their back end. But if you are going to cold call, I do think that there is some value to it. But you know, I think it should generally be more targeted, or you should have someone do it that's in-house so you can monitor their progress and have it be a high-skilled individual.
Right.
I think the big mistake, well, I guess the first big mistake when it comes to cold calling that people do is they go for like cheapo data. Yeah. Like they'll go and find like, you know, whatever cheap skiptracing.com. So skip tracing is basically when you take your list that you pulled off of, you know, PropStream or wherever you get it from, and you go and plug it into these systems, and it gives you a bunch of phone numbers comparing the addresses with the names and all that sort of stuff. And there's so many companies out there that are doing this right now. Again, if they're looking for suckers, and they'll go and they'll say like, I'll do 2-cent skip tracing, right? Which is super cheap. And you go and you plug in your spreadsheet to that, and they spend out a bunch of numbers. And they're like, as far as you know, all those numbers are good. But really what they did is they just put in a bunch of BS numbers that aren't actually anything.
Absolutely.
Right. And they'll be like, oh, our hit rate's only 70%. Sorry that 30% of them are bad. It's like, well, you just paid them a shit ton of money for fake data. Yep. So you have to find reputable people. We use one that's called Skip Genie. That's been great. Like we've tested theirs with a bunch of different calling and texting services and have a really good hit rates with that. And then the second issue that people have, besides going and either outsourcing it to things that they don't have control of, or what they'll do, the alternatively is they'll hire someone that is super low quality because they're really cheap and they're overseas, and they typically have an accent that is not conducive to
I get those calls a lot. Hello, Mr. Austin, I would like to. You're like, all right, okay, I know this is okay. It's a cold call. Yeah. Let's go.
And I understand that that's, you know, $4 an hour. You can find someone from Pakistan that barely speaks English that will go through your whole script or whatever, but they're not generating good leads for you. Yep. So the most productive cold calling we've had was when we had our Central American lead manager do cold calling in his off time. He used a triple line dialer, which basically means just dialing 3 lines at once through Mojo Dialers, the service that we use. So just like any call center would use, but he spoke perfect English. He was a sales professional. He knew the script, and he would go into things basically with an intent to build rapport and not just to, you know, basically ping them and submit them to the system, right? And that was much more expensive, you know, $15 an hour. He didn't do it full time. He did it kind of in his off time when he didn't have leads he was following up with. And we got some killer deals.
Yeah, we did. He did a great job. And I think the other key too, that to speak of that on him too, one of the reasons he was successful is because his job was to follow up with leads as well, whether they were cold call leads or mail leads. And so he had a direct incentive to make it a good lead and to do a good job because he was going to be the one dealing with them immediately afterwards.
Correct. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So he already has that relationship, and it's not like, you know, he's calling and saying, oh, you know, I'll have, you know, my boss call you back or something. He was actually going through setting up the appointment, doing the entire process, getting all the information and establishing that relationship. And then, you know, further down the line, he would reach out to them again and they already knew who he was, you know? And so if you're going to do cold calling, that's realistically how you have to do it. You know, I know some companies that are very successful with their cold calling will actually go as far as having, you know, their acquisitions people who are, you know, true American people on commission do their cold calling in their off time. Or the, like, you know, people starting out will do it themselves. And with Thatch Wynn in Seattle, he's like this dude is like
Kills
the
it.
definition of hustle.
Yep.
I mean, he's worth probably tens of millions of dollars at this point. He owns huge amounts of real estate, those huge, incredible development deals, but he cold calls himself.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and it keeps you sharp too, right?
You know,
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah.
right? It's all sales skills, and that's a way to do it. But you know what? I guarantee you he's getting better results than with his resources. He could go and buy an entire Eastern Asian country and make them all cold
Yeah,
callers,
exactly.
and they still wouldn't get as good results as he probably gets himself, because he's educated. You know, language matches the area, like he knows what he's doing, and he's built high rapport on that first call.
So let me recap too. I want to maybe do this process. So if you wanted to do cold calling, so you're going to start out. You're going to go get your list of people, of your potential leads. You go to PropStream or whatever software you're using, pull that down. You're going to skip trace those numbers, and you're probably going to do a do not call and litigator scrub. Right?
Yeah, that's very important.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
So that you don't get yourself into trouble.
Yeah, and most services will offer that for free.
So like Skip Genie, for example, offers that. So you say you've got 30,000 people on your list, that gets scrubbed down to maybe 15,000 or whatever. And then now you have skip traced, hopefully clean from litigators and the do not call list. And then from there, it's best, is what you're saying, is to have an in-house or somebody in your company with excess capacity to do the cold calling. To do that, you need to get likely a dialer. 3 lines seems to be something that we found as a happy medium. You can go above that or below that, but triple line dialer, like what's an example of one?
Yeah, so Mojo Dialer is what we use.
Okay.
It's really easy to set up. There's a lot of different ones out there, like Call Tools and these different ones, but Mojo is so simple.
Okay.
And you can kind of use it from anywhere without having to get like a license. So a lot of companies will make you actually go and like get a license to dial through them, which is a whole process.
Gotcha.
But I highly recommend getting a dialer, even if you go for like a single line dialer, which is a little bit cheaper than a 3-line dialer, because if you're sitting there doing it yourself, or you're having your staff manually dial in numbers, they're gonna kill themselves, honestly.
Right.
Like that would be just so monotonous. So, and then some people will advertise like 10-line dialers or things bigger, but really at that point, it's dialing 10 lines simultaneously. If 3 people answer on the same one, it'll just select one, and the other 2 people are just like, what is this ghost call that I just got?
Right.
And it's just wasting.
I get those a lot. That's what they're for.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably a 10-line dialer, and yours wasn't the one that got picked.
Yeah.
So, So yeah, get on a dialer.
Yep.
And then once you have them, people on the phone, if I want to be in-house, you can track, what kind of people are answering and which ones aren't, and what your total answer rate is. And then what that conversation should realistically look like is they are approaching them as if they are the actual representative that the client's going to be working with, the seller's going to be working with, and not as like a handoff. So they're going to go through, they're going to introduce themselves, do a basic pre-screen before you show your business name, so you don't go and get bad reviews and things like that. But, like build a level of trust. And once you have that, you can say, yeah, you can check us out. We are legit. We are looking to buy properties in this area. And I guarantee you that your conversions on these leads will be much higher. And honestly, the workload on yourself and your skilled salespeople will be a lot less, because you're not going to be wasting time trying to chase down these trash leads from some call center that they're submitting just so that you stick with them for another couple of months.
Yep. So kind of what I observed too, from the like outside looking in, and I think this is along the lines of what you're saying, is really the best cold calling, and it takes a little bit of effort on your part because you're doing the work, is to try to do it in-house. A, you can track what's going on. B, you can make adjustments. And C, I would say you can really refine your script to be specific. I don't know that the cost is any cheaper or more expensive than paying for a service, because some of the services are quite expensive. But then you can actually, run your A/B testing on and see if it fits for your company, because the cold call leads tend to be a lot tougher leads to close. So your sales skills have to be better than a direct mail. And direct mail, we love those leads.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another really valid point. So our business is very heavily direct mail. I'd say at this point, probably 90% of our deals come from direct mail. Just sending those little, postcards, letters, different sort of things that we do. That's really what we teach in our instant investor program, is how to do the direct mail process in a way that gets a lot of traction and that converts. Because it's the same thing with the direct mail, right? We can do this on another episode, but if you're just sending out the cheap, easy version of direct mail, it's just like going to the cheap, easy call center, cheap, easy skip tracing.
Get what you paid for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, you're completely right. So for the direct mail, our typical time from a contact to a signed contract is about like 24 days. For cold call leads, it's usually about 70 days. So it's like, was that almost 3 times as long to just have across the finish line.
Yeah, because you got to continuously build a rapport because you're cold calling them. They're picking up the phone. They're not calling you. They're not reaching out to you. You're going to have that extra time building rapport because they got to trust you first. I mean, they're talking about selling their house to you and you're some random person that just called them. That seems weird. And so building that trust and rapport is huge. And that's why it takes so much longer to get them to come around to that idea.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and you have to go through that whole, just establishment process so that they know you're legit. And, honestly, make them, because it's probably possible they weren't even considering selling until you call them and they're like, yeah, maybe I will. So, perfect. So anyway, cold calling, I mean, it's not our favorite, but if you do it strategically, it can be very powerful. But just like with everything else, if you just go to push the easy button, you might get results, but you're going to be spending a lot more money getting those results and it's not going to be as in your control.
Right.
So anyway, if you have any questions about that, if you think that we're freaking wrong, go ahead and shoot me an Instagram message and tell me I suck. Yeah. We were talking about this the other day. I'm so upset I don't have any haters yet.
Yeah.
I feel like I need
you got to have haters to say you've made it. But yeah, please do. Cause like Mike and I, we've tried a lot of ways of cold calling, a lot of services. And if you have a way that you're like, I know this works, let us know. Cause we'll pay you for it.
Yeah. I'll pay you for it. If you know it works, here's what I'll do. If you show me that it works, you can come and you can get us a sick deal. I will split that deal with you 50-50, no matter how big it is. It's $100,000 deal, and you can come and bring us a cold call service that gets us a legit lead in an appropriate amount of time, not like just fishes for 3 months, but let's say in like 2 weeks. And, Dan and I make $100,000 off it. I will write you a $50,000 check personally.
Put your money where your mouth is, Mike.
Exactly. That's what I want.
That's how confident you are.
Yeah, that's how confident I am that it doesn't exist. So, perfect. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. If you want to learn from Dan and I about how we structured our business, full disclosure, it is direct mail heavy. Yeah. But we have some good results coming in there. One of our guys actually just snagged a lake house off of a
super sweet deal.
Pretty freaking dope. Yeah, it's like a $657,000 lake house that he got for $450,000.
And he bought the dude's cars.
And he bought the guy's cars. Yeah. True hustler. Yeah, it's awesome. So either way, go to instantinvestorprogram.com. You can schedule a call with one of us and we'll see if you'd be a good fit. You can follow us on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invests. Dan is at InvestorManDan. You can check out our podcast at collectingkeyspodcast.com. On there, you can get a 5-step guide on how to start generating off-market leads, which is kind of a basic guide to get you started. Or if you go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/calculator, you can get our deal calculator that we are using to calculate the renovations and profit potential of all of the properties that we analyze. And besides that, you guys should subscribe to the podcast. You should download it. Go back and download every episode. That's what really bumps up in the metrics. And I think I covered everything. Did I get all of our call to actions?
I think so. Yeah.
Now everyone's like, "There's too many."
There's too many. We're gonna have to cut this. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut it down. We're gonna have to clean it up a little bit, Mike.
Either way, go subscribe, download, and follow our socials and go to instantinvestorprogram.com.
Yeah.
So, right on, Dan. Send us off.
Yeah. Let's see. Nothing special today, but if you are going to jump into cold calling, call me. I love to talk to cold callers. I even got cussed out. Remember that last one I got cussed out on? We were walking a property and I answered it. And the guy, I think he forgot he was on mute and he just started cussing me out in a Filipino accent. So I love it. Send him to me. Let's do it.
That was so funny. Yeah. You asked a couple questions and you were totally just pulling and he goes, "Fuck you."
Oh, he was so mad. I loved it. Yeah. Send him my way. I'll give him some feedback.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks guys. Talk to you next week.
Right, see you.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.